All right. Mr. Douglas, welcome. How are you, man?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys. Welcome to the Crestcore Real Estate Hour. I'm your host, Dean Harris. Happy to be here today, man. It's got a New Year vibe to it, doesn't it?
2022.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. You can catch the show after it's over on Facebook, Spotify, wherever you catch your YouTube, wherever you catch your podcasts. We'll post it on there a couple hours afterwards. If you have any questions about today's episode or anything else, you can email me, dean@crestcore.com. I'll be happy to help you with that, get you going. If you have any show topics, that's one thing we haven't asked in a while. Have any show topics you want us to talk about, please let us know. But I'm ready to go here. Today's topic is going to be, we got two.
Yep.
We're going to give you, for all your viewing pleasure, we're going to give you two topics today and kind of keep each one of them a little brief because there's just not a whole lot of details in both of these, so we thought we'd cram them
and
both
they're
in.
flip sides of the same coin.
And they're flip sides of the coin. So we're going to start off by, I'm getting this a lot, how to make your offer more competitive. When you're a when you're a buyer and I'm representing you or anyone for that matter, how to make your offer more competitive. I am having 1 to 3 conversations a week right now with buyers trying to figure out how to get their offer accepted.
Yep.
So we're going to go through there. The part 2 of this is what to do to get your investment home ready to list. So it is the time to sell.
Yes.
We're still in that time frame of, hey, we believe our prices have leveled. If I don't know that they're going to dip or raise, who knows? But right now I do believe they've leveled. It is a time to sell. So we're going to talk about some small things to do to get it a little more presentable, a little bit more attractive to buyers. So let's go back up to this making an offer. So Douglas, if I send out a good house right now, if I sent out a house at Bartlett, 38134 for $150,000 that rents for $1,300 or $1,400, that's a 3.2, I would get 10 offers.
Sure.
Much less the listing agent or whoever else. So, I'm what we need to tackle here in this next few minutes is what to make them more competitive. I've got a few notes, but I do this every day, so I just spit this right out. What do you think? What comes to mind when it's make your offer more competitive?
I love it. I always got to start with a bigger picture, which is the sales in 2021 outpaced sales in 2020, which outpaced sales in 2019. Yep. So it's a competitive type of environment. And
getting worse or getting more competitive.
Getting more competitive inventory. I don't know if we link in show notes to the MAR, but they put out every month, they put out their stats. And of course, inventory was high and it dipped and it kind of came up. And guess where it's been going the past few months? Back down. So again, that's why this is a very important issue because it's the inventory, the supply demand that we talk about, the big picture things that are driving this. So if you're trying to make your offer competitive, there is nothing more competitive than all cash, no contingency.
There's nothing.
Quick close, but if you have all cash and no contingency, there's no, all it's going to take is a title search and then you're done. Yep. So, there is nothing more competitive than that.
Yes. So,
is that realistic? Sometimes, let me tell you of I know all cash, no contingencies. That's the best you can do.
From a make an offer standpoint, not anything else. We're not going to talk about your risk or what we're saying is you're the most competitive offer that there is on the table. Cash, close as soon as title works back, no contingencies.
Yes, and probably even potentially a lower offer than one that's contingent on financing, contingent on inspections, contingent.
Yeah.
So they would probably accept you a little bit lower for all cash.
Sure. If it's $20,000 or whatever, no. But if it's a couple of $1,000s, like sellers in this market are taking that cash deal.
Yes. So that's the thing you got to do. And so how realistic is that? Some all cash, I would say if you are a long-term buyer, if you are in this for buy and hold and you are going to be building a rental portfolio.
Yep.
As we've talked about building a relationship with your bankers and whoever, one of the things that high priorities for 2022, if you don't already, you need to figure out a plan and put a plan in place to have a mechanism by which you can make all cash offers.
Yep.
Whether it is cash or credit that is like cash, whether it's
line of credit,
some type of line of credit. Maybe it's a high dollar amount credit card. Maybe it's a free and clear property. Maybe it's a home equity line of credit. Maybe it is a line of credit against a securities portfolio. Maybe it's a relationship with a family or friend who can loan you really cheap or, something where you have a way to make all cash offers. If you don't and you're a long-term buyer, that to me would be something in 2022 as a goal to work towards. And start with 50 grand, 100 grand, 150, 250, and work your way up over time.
Yeah.
That would be a great goal. And that's something I personally did and continually work on.
It took me a year to get my line of credit to where it's at now. It took me flipping it over 4 or 5 times with the bank. They're not just going to hand you
and I started with the home equity line of credit. I bought my house.
See.
I put some down initially.
Yeah.
Then I bought. Then it appreciated. So I had a little spread.
Yeah.
And I went to the bank and I got a line of credit
and started
on
buying.
that.
Yeah.
And then I paid that off, and then I had the whole equity in that house. Yeah. And then it snowballs after that. But again, and it's not, it didn't happen in a day. But then I got a line of credit from a close family member. Yep. That was allowed me to do some things that was like cash. So again, all of this to say is
cash.
How do you get something where you can make a cash offer and it's not contingent upon financing, which then becomes contingent upon an appraisal, most likely. So you're just putting yourself in a less competitive position, which is what the whole topic is how do you make yourself more competitive?
In a less competitive market, the cash deal is not as powerful as the loan deal, because it's the same check at closing. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I used to have sellers tell me, no, I'm not taking 10 grand less because it's the same. Well, those markets are different, right? Right now, it's like, wow, I don't have to fool with this, and this. This is such a high price. I better take this while I can. You know what I mean? Even if it's a little bit lower than that conventional loan. So that's good. So putting yourself in a position to offer cash, that's great. Great description of that. So my first was cash and a quick close. We can't close any quicker than the title work. So
it's going to be a couple
takes 2 weeks.
I mean, their title companies are backed up. Closing attorneys are full.
Right.
So you got a couple weeks.
Yes. Escalation clauses is one thing that I have been advising. So let me explain that real quick. Because I've gone back and forth on the explanations for this. So let's say the list price is $100,000. Okay. You're comfortable paying $108,000. But you don't necessarily want to start it off at the top. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
You can make an offer of this is an example of $95,000 with a $1,000 escalation clause up to $108,000. So your initial offer comes in at 95. You have that verbiage in there. You tell the agent or you tell the seller where you're at. And if another offer comes in at 102,000, your offer automatically, without any consulting or without anything, is at 103.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the offer comes in at 107, your offer is 108. That was your max, right?
Yep.
If an offer comes in at 115,000, your offer is now done. It's void because your max was 108. A lot of people say, why in the world would you submit that? The listing agent can just get a fake contract and give you one. They got to show us a contract. They've got to show us the buyer, who it is, that it's a real contract that initiated this clause. A lot of times, if you talk to an agent, if they really want to get specific, they've got to accept that other contract, sign it, and agree to it. And then the escalation clause kicks in. Most of them don't go through that trouble and the headache with the other person because it's, it's going to ruffle their feathers, so to speak.
Right.
But in technical like if you really wanted to get down to it, they have to literally accept it, and then this moves in. Now, if they just present this offer to me and my client, I'll take that, especially if I know the agent. I'll take that and say, okay, yeah, this is what it is. But that's what an escalation clause does. It assures two things. You have the best offer coming in. You made your best offer. If it came in at 115 and your max was 108, well, then that wasn't for me.
Yeah, it wasn't for you.
You know, that house wasn't for me. But if you
don't want to overpay,
and you do not want to overpay, I'll never tell you to do that. So if you come in at 95 and you end up paying 99, well, that's great. You didn't have to pay that extra $8,000, $9,000 to get you where you wanted to be. So the escalation clause protects you from having this feeling, you know, you offered 95. Dang, man, it sold for 98. I'd have paid 99. Well, I do that with HUD houses online. When you're bidding online, I tell them, hey, you don't know who's bidding. Bid what you're comfortable losing the home at. That's the phrase I always say.
I agree.
Bid what you're comfortable losing it at.
That's right. And whether escalation clause is a great tool to use, or just going flat out with your highest and best.
Or you can do that. Or you can come in and just say, hey, 108's my number. Let me have it.
Yeah, because that's what you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, if I have an investor that says, "Hey, let's just do that," I'll push them to the escalation clause.
Good.
I mean, if I can save them $3,000 or $4,000 and get the house, then I think it's my job to save them $3,000 or $4,000 and get the house.
Yeah, I agree. That's good.
All right, so escalation clauses.
What do you think about in investment properties? I know there's a thing on the residential owner occupant side called love letters.
On the investment side, I've sent those.
And the love letters for the listeners are?
The love letters for the listeners are, let's say you're in your residential home. You give a description of you and your family and why you want to buy this home, how much it would mean to you to be in this market and that neighborhood. You have young kids that want to enjoy the schools, or if there's a feature about the home, the pool, your kids, or location, or you want to keep the home. A lot of people do this. If it's an older home that has antique type finishes and features to the home,
historic, something.
The seller might want the new owner to keep that up. Okay. That doesn't happen a lot here, but
so that's a love letter.
That's a love letter.
Do the love letters work on the investor side? No.
Yeah. I've submitted a couple of them because the buyers wanted me to do that, but the investor at the end of the day is just like, I could care less what they're doing with the property. I just want to get my number and go.
That's right.
A lot less of emotion with this versus the love letter for your residential home.
Right.
You're trying to pull at the heartstrings of the sellers, what you're really trying to do.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And pulling on the heartstrings of the seller of an investment.
So that's not necessarily going to make or it is not going to make your offer more competitive in this market.
I would be shocked. I think it would be a 1 out of 10.
Gotcha.
I think 1 out of 10, if you attach that letter to it, would appreciate that. But no, and I don't have to be honest with you. I've had one or two even.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah,
just didn't know.
Okay, so the next one we're talking about escalation clause, waiving some contract contingencies. Let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
If you're obtaining a loan, you're going to have an appraisal. Okay, you can waive that appraisal contingency.
Yes,
your bank's still going to do the appraisal.
And still have a financing contingency.
Correct.
Yes.
But you can waive the appraisal contingency, and that gives the seller a little bit more warm and fuzzy feeling of, hey, if it appraises a little low, this guy's saying he doesn't care. He wants to move on.
Correct.
Right. So they can still back out from the loan contingency part of it, but it at least makes that seller feel like, hey, that's one less thing I've got to worry about, especially in our market, right? Because our prices have gone up.
Yeah. If the appraisal doesn't quite get to where it needs to be for the financing.
Yeah. Then that's one reason why they would do that. Yes.
Because then the buyer saying, I'll bring a little more money to the table.
I'll bring a little more if it's a few thousand.
And that will make your offer more competitive.
That does make your offer more competitive. Now, some people have asked me, should I remove the inspection contingency? I'm never going to tell you to do that. I'm not going to advise it. As a licensed real estate agent, as somebody that is your representative as a buyer, I'm never going to say that. If we look at the house and it's been completely refurbished, we've got pictures and videos and it looks fantastic, maybe you roll that dice.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if there's any kind of indication like there's a rehab or it's a tenant living in the property or whatever, I just can't advise to do it.
We just bought a property, had been in it 2 years ago.
You had?
And was comfortable with it. It sold. Long story. Came back. The seller who bought it didn't do anything with it.
Yep.
It's been vacant for 2 years.
Yep.
In order to get him to sell it, we had to go with a waived inspection.
Yep.
But we hadn't been in it in 2 years. But he hadn't done anything with it in 2 years. So we rolled the dice a little bit.
Yep.
This is for a church. So we rolled the dice a little bit. But we went in, we got in it during the period, couldn't get out of the contract, and it was fine. There was a little bit of some stuff that popped up over that 2 years, but we were able to waive the inspection contingency because we'd been in the property previously, and it made our offer the one he accepted, and we closed, and it's great.
Here's another example of where I might waive it. I'm still never.
Yeah, I mean, we were right. When we went in there, we were planning for the worst, and we got, oh goodness, thank you.
The only other way I could see a buyer being willing to do that is if the home needs an enormous rehab.
Yeah, there you go.
If you can see the pictures and it needs $30,000, a roof and HVAC floors, who cares about the inspection? Run out there and make sure that it's not caving into the earth, right? And then you're going to fix it. You're doing a $30,000 rehab.
That's right.
The only thing would be structural, right?
Yeah.
That would be it. And even then, it's like you can fix that.
You're planning on it. In the past, I have done that with investment properties. Like, I'm going to buy it. Doesn't matter. Regardless.
Yeah.
So
it would take something dramatic. I always tell people black mold and structural. But if you can get in and see the pictures, you could tell if there's some mold in there. And
you can fix both of those things. If you want that property bad enough for whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Middle of the road property, I say no way. We got to inspect it.
Yep.
The turnkey property, I'll let you guys choose that, but that's a possibility to do. And the one that needs a ton of rehab, I'm actually comfortable with. I don't.
Right.
I send my rehab guy there to tell me how much it costs, but I don't do any kind of contingency on it.
And again, we're talking about how to make your offer more competitive. And waiving in contingencies will make it more competitive. Because the seller's going, a contingency to inspect it, or I can just let them have it. Man, I'm going to let them have it. Even if it's a little bit less, I would, as a seller, if it's all cash, no inspection contingency, I'm taking that over any kind of contingency higher offer.
And I would also say this, wrapping this up a little bit, is I wouldn't make this a business practice.
No.
I would take it case by case.
Case by case.
House by house.
Case by house. Yes.
Do not make this a business practice to say I'm going to do this on everyone.
Agree.
Last thing is just be patient. On your buy on the buyer offers. I have one buyer that called me this week. She submitted 16 offers and hasn't gotten one yet. Now, that's the legwork on our end, right? We're the ones having to spin those wheels. We're obviously willing to do that, but be patient. Don't wait. The worst thing that you can do, and I know you're going to agree, is to buy the wrong house or pay too much.
Right. Yes.
Or
yes.
All of that falls into the right thing. If you're not getting, here's one other thing too. If you're not getting off your contracts and you've made 16 offers, congratulations. You're looking at the right houses.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it in those terms. Someone else is buying this, right? You submitted an offer. There was 8 other offers on there. Congratulations.
You're looking at the
right product.
That's right.
Right? You've done your homework. We've talked about what you're looking for. You are looking for a property that is popular amongst investors. Congratulations. Now, we just got to tweak it and get a little bit better about getting it, but just stay patient.
And you've learned a ton.
You're learning all the way through this.
All the way through. So, I don't buy the wrong house. Don't overpay.
No.
I have overpaid. I have bought the wrong house. It's not worth it.
Never.
Being patient, there's gonna be opportunities. A lot of times things will come back around. That church I just mentioned, we tried to buy it 2 years ago. That it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Somebody else bought it. Didn't work out, and now was an opportunity for us
to grab it.
So it's like things kind of come around. So
all the time.
So
there's a little bit of how to make your offer more competitive. If you have any questions about this part of it, shoot me an email, dean@crestcore.com. We can go over it, set up a call. But I thought I had this conversation 20 times over the last 2 months. So I wanted to kind of put this down on the podcast, let you guys come back and reference it later. So anything else you want to add on offers?
I would just go back to, hey, it's 2022 and now's the time to build a mechanism to make cash offers.
Yes. That's great.
Yeah. Do not neglect that.
No.
Priority number one. Big picture priority number one. Long term.
I've even told people, hey, because most of them don't live here. If you're in California, you got a local bank that you're close to, go get the line of credit there.
Yeah. Some banks will give you an unsecured line of credit based on who you are. We have had that, like an unsecured line of credit just because they like dealing with you. And you can use that.
Yes.
And then go refinance it with some more, term it out on a mortgage. Yes.
I don't mind sharing that. I have one. I've got one that's unsecured.
Yeah.
They just know I'm going to pay them and they see my history and stuff like that. But I mean, go to your bank in California, go to your bank in New York, wherever I got Miami. All my guys are from California. So go to the, your bank there in Sacramento that you have all your cash with. Hey, I need $200,000.
And that is a big step towards all cash offers. A big step towards
and
having
we'll
the
get
most
our
competitive
local.
offer.
That's also too. Now that we're talking about it, that's also great for our local banks. It's much easier to get a refinance loan than a brand new loan.
Yes.
So if you already own the property, like it's way easier for me to call some of my local guys here and say, hey, he wants to, leverage this and refinance this out. It's much easier to get that done. So that's great.
Yes.
Moving to cash and moving the ability to move quicker and easier for the seller is the best position. All right, let's move to listings. Let's move to now we're going to take our buyer hat off and put on our seller hat. We now own property across Memphis. We see that the market is kind of peaking and it's getting on up there. We're thinking about selling. I've done regular maintenance on my houses, but I haven't really done anything extra or on top of that. If I come to you, Douglas, and I say, hey, I'm looking to sell a couple of houses, what might be something that comes to mind that we give them as advice on getting them ready? Like what would be, some things we can do to the actual property and our paperwork, our leases and ledgers and things that, what are some of the stuff that you would think of that we need to do to a house to get it ready?
Yeah. So I kind of thought a little bit and kind of think when I'm doing it, it's kind of framing it again. It's like, are you selling a vacant house or an occupied house?
I think either one. I think we need to give examples to both.
So I think on the occupied house, that means you're selling to an investor. So are you trying to sell to a kind of a DIY do-it-yourselfer, or are you trying to sell a turnkey type of property where you're going to need to get this out there, you're going to need to do the major updates with that tenant and have that high market rent? Or are you just going to try and unload it as it is?
Yep.
And then if it's vacant, you're saying kind of the same thing. It's like, are you trying to sell it to an owner occupant, or are you trying to sell it to an investor who wants kind of a hands-off, fixed-up product, or do you want it to somebody who's going to come in and buy it and put some sweat equity into it, rehab it, burr it? Because
those are two separates.
Because those are two separate. So again, I'm trying to say, like, what are you trying to do, seller? Who's your target? Are you trying to get out quick? You trying to not have to fool with anything? Just let it go. Is it occupied or vacant to start with? So
my most common response is the most money.
The most money.
I mean that is a generic and expected response, but you've got to look at the specifics.
And so then I'll go, that's great. So how much time do you want to put into this?
Yep.
Do you want to work with a contractor to do some of those things, or do you want to just kind of get it? Your time is money, so to speak. So it's
how much does this mean to you?
How much does this mean to you? We can get it sold quick like this, or we're going to spend 30 days getting it rehabbed and ready at a higher level.
Right. So let's talk about the vacant. Let's go the easy route. Let's go the vacant house.
Okay.
You got two options. You can broom sweep that thing and sell it to an investor.
Yep.
Or you can put some money into it and get it into retail residential owner occupant condition.
Yep.
FHA loan. I always tell people that. What do you mean? Pass an FHA inspection. That's what it means. No rotten wood.
Yep.
Everything works. That sort of thing. Safe, habitable.
That's you're going to have to. Where's that money going to come from to fix it up?
Yep.
Because are you going to have to put a roof on? Or are you going to have to put new bathrooms or kitchens? Are you going to have to put new floors? What kind of work are you going to have to do on the outside to get it in that retail rent ready, turnkey kind of shape?
That's right. I mean, is it going to be worth it?
There's time and money that you're going to have to invest into that.
Yeah.
First, just, I don't want to say dumping it, but just leaving it as unloading it, letting it go that way. I've done both, because sometimes you just like, hey, for the time and the effort, it's not going to be worth what you can just sell it and let somebody else do that.
There's my typical advice is, hey, you're going to put 20 grand in this to make an extra 6.
Yeah. And it's going to take you this, and it's going to be that 20 grand that you've got tied up in this.
There's a risk in putting that up. I mean, if you put 20 grand in to make 20 more grand, okay, that's 100% return. So I guess I could see your cash on cash return there. But 20 grand into a house that you're going to sell it for 6 or 7, 8 grand more. I mean, it just seems really tough. It seems to me that, because here's what would happen anyway. Even if you did all the work, the buyer's going to come in and find some other stuff to be done to it anyway. So your 20 grand is going to turn into 23 grand. Right. So to me, it's, unless there's an enormous gap there, right? You bought it really cheap, But if there's 20, 30 grand in there total, like that's going to be tough for you to find the value and to do
just get it ready.
Broom sweep that thing. Make sure that there's no, if there's the drywall's falling in, replace the drywall. But as long as there's nothing major glaring and everything works, it's going to be my advice to sell it as it is to another investor, unless we can just find the room in there, to create that, that extra pop and that extra value of you submitting that money in there to make more money out of it.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh, take a quick inspection. Okay. One of the things that I'm running into right now, I've got a big one right now that I'm dealing with, and the poor guy just doesn't know anything about the house. If you're getting ready to list a home, occupied or not, I'm advising my folks to spend the $150 to $200 to get a rehab inspection done. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would do. I know I wouldn't do the licensed home inspector, because then way too much info, and we've got to disclose all that. I would not do the licensed home inspection. I would do the general contractor. Have him come in there and tell you. And if he comes back to you and hands you a $6,000 bill that's like, hey, for $6 grand we can get rent ready, you at least know your home's in pretty good shape, right? Tenant in there or not? Because if there's a tenant in there, been there for 2 years, you don't know what's going on inside there. If he comes back and says, hey, man, there's 25 grand here, here's the pictures to show it, then we'll know how to price it. Mm-hmm. I priced a house the other day, or it's been a month ago. Tenant's paying $1,100. The market rent's $1,400. The guy wants $150,000 for it. We've sold it 3 times. The first guy went in and said there was $35,000 in rehab. Man. Second guy drove by there and said there was close to that, 25. The third person went by there and didn't even go in. So then the investor calls me back. What's wrong? Why, he's upset with me. And I'm like, look, my man, I've sold the thing 3 times. The buyers don't like it. I go, when's the last time you've seen it? Oh, well, the management company does an annual inspection. I go, when's the last time you've seen it? I haven't ever. I go, okay. When's the last time someone sent you a full set of pictures? When I bought it 4 years ago. I go, my guy, you got to go in there and figure out what's going on. It's in terrible shape. And it's not uncommon for us to not visit a home that's occupied. We don't want to upset the tenant.
As an investor,
yeah, they get rattled. They think, oh my God, it's being sold. Things are changing. Although it isn't. We still don't disturb tenants, right? So it's going to be my advice to you, if you don't know, spend that money to find out what's going on in your home. Okay? It is $200, but come on, it's $200. If you're going to really, sell this and go out, there's a little expense that's going to go into it. So then get an idea of what that home looks like. It'll help me price it. It'll help you as the seller to understand the expectations of what's coming, right? If it's in great shape, then you're not going to get beat up. If it's in bad shape, you're going to get beat up. So let's price it accordingly.
Plan for that. Yes.
So there's one thing that I would do to make sure your tenant is paying the market rent. I get a lot of that. I just told you the example of it. It's $1,400 rent. The guy just signed a 6-month lease for $1,100.
Right.
And I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, but going again a little high level on this and some of the things I think, and this might be a little bit on managing the manager, but knowing your property. And again, if we're talking about and being a long-term investor and working on your business, you want to hire people to run the day-to-day so that you can focus on the bigger picture things, the bigger picture items. And those are understanding what the values are out in the marketplace, understanding what the after repair value is, understanding just some of the basics about a house. It's not a bad idea to pick up a general home building book and learn, like, just brush up from the foundation to the roof.
Yeah.
What these components are and who does what, knowing that, and another thing that I was going to say is market rents. So you want to know the basics about general home construction. You want to know the ARVs. You want to know what the values are in the home, and you want to keep in touch with the market rents. And those are the things that are going to make you a better investor. And that I know you're like me. One of the things I watch like a hawk is my market rents. And the tenant who is a resident who is living in that home based on their lease. So is it an opportunity to raise the rent, or do you keep them at a similar rent because they're an awesome tenant? Yeah. So the $1,100 tenant, it might be that tenant's been in there for 10 years and they keep an immaculate home.
Yeah.
Even though it's below, they pay on time every time. They do the maintenance themselves. They keep it. Look what they've done to the yard.
Yeah.
They've done this. Look what they've done to the house. They've added this. They've added this. So it might be worth it to someone under the right scenario, but you have to be in touch.
Yeah. You got to know what's going on.
Know what's going on. So dialing into the market rent, the 1,100 versus 1,400, you got to know that
going into it, and if it's below and there's a reason, you got to be ready to explain it.
Yes,
and the reasons.
And
why.
If it's not, then you got to be able to take the consequences of that.
That's right. My next one was just make sure that it's broom swept. Get the trash out. I mean, this sounds elementary, but I mean, I get some sellers that don't. Get the trash out, the attic, clean all that crap out, clean everything out that the last tenant made. If there's the fence is leaning and there's boards in the back and there's tires in the back, clean all that crap up. It just go, because if you don't, the first thing that the buyer thinks when you get there is, this guy didn't take care of this house. What else are we going to find?
Yep.
That's the first thing that pops in their head is, there's tires and wood and all that, the trash. Look, the shed's falling over. This guy doesn't take care of it. It's going to be a perception thing going on. So I would say broom sweep and keep the thing at least presentable, right? What else have I got here? Understand the difference in the value of an occupied home with a tenant for sale versus an owner occupant residential property. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot. Hey, Dean, what can I sell my house for? At 123 Main Street. Well, the market is $150,000, but you've got a tenant in here paying $900 in rent. I don't know that I can get more than $115. Right? So I mean, like, understand that if you have a home that's occupied with a tenant, it's not necessarily going to bring residential retail value in it. The owners can't move in. The tenants have taken, not as good of care of as an owner occupant would. So there's just it's a different product. Although it's the same house in the market, because you have a tenant in there that's been in there, it's a different product than the one even next door, right? You might have the identical square feet and bedroom bath count next door. If there's a tenant here that's been living in here and there's an owner occupant that's living in here, this owner occupant house is going to sell for more than this one.
Yes.
Every single time. So just understanding the difference in those two, but getting yourself ready, have all your leases and ledgers ready. Have any kind of maintenance records or rehabs that you've done
again,
ready
if
and
it's
available.
And that's a great point. If we see this all the time.
Yeah.
If you have a rental house and it under self-managed, first professionally managed by a property manager.
Yep.
Investors will pay more for a professionally managed house than they would somebody who managed it themselves and didn't have the ledgers, the leases, the maintenance records, whereas the property management company can provide all the electronic copies and all that. So just another little thing when you go to sell, think about whether you're choosing to manage or self-manage, that when you go to sell, you better have, immaculate, meticulous records if you're self-manager.
Let me ask you this, because we've kind of gone through the notes here. If you're buying a home, and it's self-managed, and the guy doesn't have any records, that scares you off, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you represented a buyer and a seller? And I've been in this situation here recently where the other broker called me because they weren't getting information. The seller, we had a seller, they had a buyer, but we didn't get information. And I was like, oh, the seller self-manages. And the broker was like, I'm so sorry I bothered you. I didn't know that. I thought this was professionally managed. When everybody you discount it.
Oh, because
it's a self-manager.
All right, here's the part 2 of that question. Have you ever bought a home that was self-managed and the guy came up with a nice clean spreadsheet and said, here you go, here's everything?
I've had guy come with a index card in their pocket and say, here's my rent.
Look here. I wrote it down the last 7 months. I already paid. Oh, wow. You did. Well, congratulations on that. The one thing that I have done from an owner that self-manages, if they're willing to show us the deposits of the rent each month, I'll take that. That's the only case, right? Yeah. I'll accept that. Most of them aren't going to want to show you a bank statement, though. Every time I've asked that, they're like, what? If they're willing to do it and you can show the deposits, fine. But
again, not just if you're self-managing or choose to self-manage, these are the things you need to just be aware of. If you're going to sell these properties someday, get your records in line so that when it comes time to sell, because when you're selling with a professional management company managing, they've got all those records electronically, easy to send.
I can send you all mine with a couple of clicks.
Yes.
I can get you every lease and ledger. I can get everything with a couple of clicks.
Yeah.
So
that's great info to share with to have as a kind of what this is as a seller.
Yeah.
If you're selling an occupied home, that's great information to be able to provide a buyer.
Yes.
100%. So that is something to get your stuff in order,
and
get your leases, make sure your leases are up to date, make sure the rent, everything we just talked about.
Anything else to add?
Those are great. No, man.
Okay.
Now, I guess we go back to how you start all this, and we've said this over the past few months. It's like, man, now is really if you're starting 2022 and you're thinking you want to get in real estate investing, as the buyer side, I would say now, look, make your offers competitive and go do it right now.
Yeah.
Because rates are going to go up. Everybody knows that. Inflation's here. Things are happening. It's coming. Now's the time to buy.
Yep.
Flip side, and why we talked about getting your house ready to sell, it's like if you're contemplating selling, now is the absolute time before all that other stuff happens. And the more uncertainty, the more things that could go wrong, and you'll miss your window. Some folks, there was a bigger window a year ago.
Yeah.
And
it's closing.
It's closing. So if you're thinking about selling, absolutely sell right now. Look at your portfolio, look at your properties, and put it on the market today.
I'll give you a free market analysis of what it's going to sell for, what I think we can list it for. I'll get some information from you on it. So I'm happy to do that too. So yes, you are right. All right. I hope this was informational or informative today. I hope that this was some good tips on how to improve your offers when you're making offers, some good ideas on ways to structure that offer, and then on our listing and selling side, some very basic and simple things to do just to make your house more presentable, more attractive, and hopefully sell it for more money.
Yes.
All right. Anything else to add?
Nope.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you tuning in today. The Crush Core Real Estate Hour. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to be on our regular schedule of every 2 weeks, I think from here to eternity.
Let's do it.
Understand.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.